What we fear most is not loneliness, but when someone comes close enough to see all the empty spaces in our hearts. By Carl Jung. Have you ever woken in the dead of night, hands trembling as you stare at a blank screen with no message? How many times have you wondered, is he pulling away? In a world where connection surrounds us from scene receipts to endless video calls, why does silence feel heaviest precisely when you need a shoulder to lean on? Picture this. You send a gentle goodnight text and receive only a hurried yeah. Or you confide about a high-pressure day, and he nods distantly, offering no empathy. That feeling isn't merely disappointment. It gouges deep into the fear of, I'm never enough. Behind his facade of indifference, he, particularly those with avoidant tendencies, is waging a battle against fear of vulnerability and loss of control. He erects an emotional armor to shield himself, masking his need for care and understanding. Yet, that very defense is the strongest sign that you've reached the depths of his heart. Every time he stays silent or casts an aloof glance, his emotions are surging, unable to find expression. Recognizing this paradox shifts your focus from asking, why is he so distant, to uncovering those psychological pressure points, the invisible triggers capable of breaching his armor. In this article, you will discover the 7 psychological turn-ons research-backed keys to dismantle emotional defenses, not through manipulation or pressure, but by invoking freedom, mystery, calm, fairness, and dignity. Get ready to transform silence into an invitation, fear into desire, and guide him from defense to genuine connection. Have you ever felt as if you were standing before an invisible glass wall, where every attempt to touch his soul shatters into 1,000 pieces? This is the essence of avoidant men. They do not lack the desire for love, or the longing for connection, in fact. Beneath that cold exterior lies a highly sensitive, easily wounded person. But instead of admitting those needs, they erect an emotionally impermeable shield as a protective barrier, preventing anyone from seeing the deep void within their hearts. Why do they build this shield? Because for avoidant individuals, acknowledging emotions means admitting they can fail, they can be vulnerable, they can be weak. Early in life, they learn that displaying needs, seeking comfort, sharing burdens, even a simple consolation is proof of dependence. They look around and see those so-called weak souls get hurt, exploited, or abandoned. In their inner world, that is the worst fate imaginable. So rather than endure the fear of abandonment, they opt to numb their emotional depths. They suppress, they harden, they pretend as if no genuine emotions exist. But don't mistake emotional detachment for lack of care. In reality, that aloof behavior is the strongest signal that you have touched his heart. Each time you share a rough day, each time you look to him for a shred of comfort, and each time you are met with silence or a perfunctory nod, it's because he is fighting an internal battle to maintain his shield. His deepest fear is that if he exposes too much, all control will slip away, leaving him adrift in his own feelings. Imagine your heartbeat quickening at the glimpse of sadness in his eyes, yet he turns away as though those emotions never existed. That is the paradox. The more he is attracted to you, the more he strives to appear unaffected. Every subtle cue, a warm tone, a fleeting glance terrifies him because he realizes his self-control is eroding. His instinct is to retreat, donning the mask of emotional armor to conceal the truth. He wants you desperately. In this opening section of the body, we will peel back the layers of avoidant behavior, from why they keep you at arm's length, to the true nature of the emotional shield, and finally, to the proper perspective that keeps you from being mesmerized by their emotional sleight of hand. Understanding this protective mechanism is the firm foundation that will support your journey, whether you aim to win his heart or simply find inner peace in the relationship, regardless of his response. First, let's explore the safety zone that avoidants construct. For them, a perfect relationship preserves enough distance to protect each individual's personal space. It's not a lack of affection. It's their way of guarding against feelings of suffocation and loss of freedom. When you move in too fast, they perceive it as a threat and instinctively pull away. Conversely, when you demonstrate composure, showing you have your own rich inner life, they feel secure, knowing there's no coercion or control. Next, we examine the emotional shield itself, the symbol of invulnerability. It has 3 main components: silence, indifference, and avoidance. silence is the most effective way to mislead you. If you don't know what he's thinking, you become more anxious, more eager to probe, and unwittingly, you plunge deeper into the game he's orchestrating. Indifference in his gaze, gestures, or words helps him maintain a safe distance. And avoidance is the final recourse when things feel out of control. He'll conjure up a sudden meeting, an unexpected business trip, or simply declare himself busy. But if we look deeper, the shield is not lifeless. Every time he hides his emotions, an intense inner conflict plays out. The desire to be loved versus the fear of losing autonomy. Psychological research traces this avoidant attachment style back to early parent-child relationships, where inconsistent responsiveness, harsh discipline, or overindulgence can teach a child that emotions are dangerous and must be suppressed. Bowlby, 1969. As these patterns cement over time, emotions become the enemy to be battled. Thus, when you approach an avoidant man, you're not only confronting him, you're also confronting the ghosts of his past, the unhealed memories, and the invisible fears he may not even acknowledge. That's why, even in his silence, you sense his heart crying out. And though you glimpse his inner pain in his sad eyes, he insists on the facade of detachment to shield his fragile self from further harm. Finally, we must shift our perspective. Don't view his defensiveness with scorn or pity. Instead, see it as a gift, because the moment you make that emotional armor tremble, you know that you have touched the most sensitive part of him. And that very tremor reveals the pathway for applying the 7 psychological turn-ons, guiding him to realize that love does not equate to loss of freedom, but rather finding a safe space to be wholly himself. As we step through the first door of the safety zone and expose the emotionally impermeable shield of the avoidant man, a fascinating psychological paradox emerges. Precisely when he appears the most indifferent, that is the moment his heart is being most profoundly affected. You might believe that his silence, dismissive glance, or deliberate avoidance signals a cooling relationship, but in fact, these behaviors are the clearest indications that you have struck a very sensitive nerve. Every time he tries to keep his distance, inside he is wrestling with surging emotions, longing for connection, yet simultaneously terrified and confused about how to express it. Realizing this, you will no longer fall into the trap of searching for why he's so aloof. Instead, you'll focus on identifying his pressure points, the psychological stimuli capable of breaching his rigorous defenses. Your task is to render that shield meaningless so that he willingly lays down his arms and reveals his true self, with all its desires rather than its fears. Transitioning from behavior analysis to pinpointing the core of your influence, we must understand that avoidant psychology operates on the stronger the resistance, the greater the motivation principle. Take a simple example. When you send an intimate message without receiving a reply, most people feel discouraged or even blame themselves for doing something wrong. But for an avoidant man, the moment he remains silent is when he craves a response most intensely. He doesn't reply because he is afraid that if he does, he will betray just how much he cares. Knowing this paradox transforms your entire approach. Instead of demanding an answer, you learn how to stimulate those emotional zones he cannot hide, such as invoking your own independence to create psychological safety, or using unpredictability to captivate his mind rather than trigger his defenses. This awareness of the psychological paradox lays the groundwork for the 7 psychological turn-ons that we will detail in the next section. By not attacking the emotionless fortress head-on, but rather approaching it from the flank, from valuing personal space to setting clear boundaries, from maintaining calm confidence to offering him a protector role, you will skillfully unlock those sealed emotional doors. This isn't merely a tit-for-tat game, but an art of balance, arousing his deep-seated interest without making him feel coerced, challenging a heart that fears losing freedom yet yearns for connection. When that emotional armor finally melts away, you'll witness a completely new landscape of giving and receiving love, where both of you are free to be yourselves and journey toward a genuinely lasting bond. Having grasped the psychological paradox and understood the deep-seated drivers that make an avoidant man more profoundly affected the more he pretends not to care, we now move to the most crucial segment, the 7 psychological turn-ons, the factors that render his emotional armor meaningless. These are not cheap manipulation tactics, but 7 principles grounded in attachment theory and self-determination research, guiding you to lead him willingly to lower his defenses and enter a genuine safe space. 1. Respecting personal space. Independence is not a barrier, but a bridge. By clearly demonstrating that you possess a rich inner world, be it personal hobbies, independent projects, or moments of cherished solitude, he will perceive you as more than just a source of dependency. In fact, your self-assured independence intrigues him because it makes you unreadable. This explains why avoidant individuals are attracted to independent partners. A healthy distance provides safety without making them feel controlled. 2. Creating mystery and surprise. Mystery is a powerful catalyst for the chase instinct. When 2 people first engage, an avoidant mind is drawn toward the unknown. If you immediately lay bare every aspect of your life, your hobbies, career, personal experiences, he will quickly feel he knows everything and lose interest. Instead, artfully reveal fragments of yourself, an impromptu trip you're planning, an online course you've just completed, or an unexpected opinion on a controversial social issue. Each time you unveil a new secret, his brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and the drive to explore. This desire to learn more not only keeps his focus on you, but also ignites strong intrinsic motivation to actively and enthusiastically continue the hunt. Rather than forcing him to change or meet expectations, you create a subtle game. He never knows what he'll discover next, and that unpredictability keeps the relationship feeling fresh. For example, in a conversation you might hint, "Next week I'm testing a new cake recipe, any guesses what it could be?" Or share a blurry cafe snapshot. "Just arrived at this place for the first time. Any recommendations?" These prompts spark curiosity, inviting him to embark on a discovery journey, ask questions, and connect more deeply. However, mystery does not mean outright secrecy or total opacity. You remain authentic with your feelings and values. The key is selective disclosure. Control the flow of information to maintain a balance between opening up and holding back. When he senses that you're deliberately managing what you share, he understands that you aren't easily captured, which amplifies your emotional value in his eyes. Finally, surprise stems not only from words but from actions. A spontaneous midday text with a playful question, an unexpected small gift on a non-occasion, or even a surprise compliment about something he did well, all serve as highlights that make his heart skip a beat. By mastering the dual elements of mystery and surprise, you transform the relationship into a vibrant tableau where he is always excited and invited to explore more. 3. Staying calm when he withdraws. This may be the greatest challenge. When he pulls away, many instinctively respond with anxiety, increased attempts at connection, or even vulnerability to cling on. However, this reaction diminishes your value. Instead, by maintaining composure, continuing to enjoy life, upholding positive routines, and responding only when you choose, you cause him to question, "Have I lost her?" This active silence acts like a mirror, compelling him to confront his emotions rather than be swept away by the chaos you might create. 4. Rewarding consistency. Rather than responding equally to every tiny signal, clearly differentiate between breadcrumbs, insubstantial gestures, and genuine investment. When he proactively allocates time to listen, meaningfully supports you, or stays consistently in touch, reward him with focused attention, sincere praise, and warm actions. Conversely, with ambiguous signals, remain neutral. This approach leverages the intermittent reinforcement principle. Intermittent rewards encourage him to work for acknowledgement, thereby deepening his commitment. Lima, setting clear boundaries. Personal boundaries are not tools of control, but mirrors reflecting respect for yourself and your partner. By defining and communicating clear standards such as a minimum daily check-in, the level of involvement in weekend plans, or the agreed way to handle conflicts, you signal that you value your own needs and honor both your spaces. For instance, you might say, "I need at least one good morning text daily to know you're thinking of me," or "I reserve my weekends for reading and meditation. If we plan something together, please let me know 24 hours in advance." When he understands that he must respect these principles to be with you, the relationship gains structure and significance. Moreover, clear boundaries help you identify those who merely play games. If, After multiple reminders, he continues to break promises or neglect your rules. It signals a lack of seriousness. On the other hand, when he consistently adheres without being nagged, it proves he truly respects you and is committed to investing in the relationship. Most importantly, setting boundaries maintains the balance between freedom and connection. You don't lose yourself to please someone else, while simultaneously creating a safe framework for both partners to thrive. This is the foundation for building a healthy, sustainable, and fulfilling love. 6. Allowing him to feel protective. You might view asking for small favors, assembling furniture, seeking advice when you face a challenge as timid. In reality, it delicately triggers his protective instincts. When you acknowledge his competence, for example, "I love how well you organized your workspace. Could you help me do the same?" He feels important and valued. This nurtures trust that commitment to you is not a burden but an opportunity to express his worth. 7. Walking away with dignity. Finally, when you've invested wholeheartedly in the 7 psychological turn-ons and still receive no genuine commitment, you must be prepared to walk away calmly and confidently. There is no room for anger or blame. Instead, you demonstrate self-respect by accepting that your worth deserves a more sincere relationship. Walking away with dignity is more than simply leaving. It is a clear declaration of your personal boundaries and standards. You might gently say, "I've cherished our time together, but I need a real commitment to move forward." Then you step away without drama or pleading, your confidence intact. When an avoidant partner witnesses you holding your ground without succumbing to theatrics, his greatest fear will surface: losing a safe relationship where he could be himself. His defensive stance, which once seemed protective, now reveals that it has driven away someone truly valuable. Remember, the goal is not to force him to chase you, but to prompt him to reflect on the consequences of his defensive behavior. By maintaining dignity in parting, you protect yourself from further hurt, while exerting a subtle yet profound positive pressure on him, encouraging him to rethink his approach in future relationships. Walking away with dignity represents the pinnacle of balance. You preserve your freedom while showing him the true value he stands to lose. It is the final step that allows you to close one chapter and open another one in which both of you have the chance to grow and discover genuine happiness. Thus, the 7 psychological turn-ons offer not just temporary tactics, but an artful balance between freedom and connection, autonomy and intimacy. In the next section, we will explore how to apply each turn-on in real life, with concrete steps and illustrative examples, ensuring you move from understanding to actual, positive transformation of your relationship. Having decoded the 7 psychological turn-ons and detailed their theoretical underpinnings in the previous section, to ensure that these strategies go beyond theory and yield real results when interacting with an avoidant partner. First and foremost, you must recognize that no psychological tactic or principle will work unless the avoidant individual genuinely wants to change. If he merely enjoys the thrill of the chase without any intention to commit, all your efforts will lead you into a draining cycle of emotional investment that wastes time and energy. Thus, the very first and most critical step is distinguishing whether he is a truly avoidant person longing for connection despite his fears, or simply a game player with no real intentions. How can you tell the difference? An avoidant partner who wants to improve will be honest about his fears and defense mechanisms. He may admit that intimacy makes him anxious or confess past failures in maintaining a close relationship. In contrast, a chaser will hide his insecurities, continually offer excuses to avoid commitment, and make vague promises that never materialize. Watch both his words and his actions carefully, and assess the consistency between the two to decide if he's worth your investment. Another essential caveat is to never coerce or manipulate the avoidant partner into compliance. The turn-ons we've explored are not emotional traps, but psychological conditions such as respect for personal space, intriguing mystery, calm composure in the face of distance, and clear boundaries that render his defenses useless. When the relationship environment embodies freedom, safety, fairness, he will voluntarily lower his guard and open up. Throughout this process, maintain authenticity and empathy. Avoid any behavior that makes him feel controlled or blatantly engaged in tit-for-tat exchanges, as that will only rekindle his fear of losing autonomy and push him further away. Additionally, be prepared that results will not be instantaneous. An avoidant individual's defense mechanisms are built up over many years, so softening them requires time, patience, and consistent effort on your part. Each time you respect his personal space, introduce a moment of surprise, or remain calm when he withdraws. You chip away at his fear and reinforce his trust that this relationship is different from past experiences. Think of it as an emotional training process. Initial progress might be only 10–20%, but with sustained effort, you'll reach 50%, then 70%, and eventually 90% of his emotional armor melts away. Finally, establish clear criteria for yourself to measure progress. You might keep an emotional journal, monitor how often he initiates contact, track the depth of his sharing during conversations, or observe his behavior when you stand your ground or step away with dignity. These metrics help you decide whether to continue or step back, protecting your self-worth and preventing emotional exhaustion in a relationship without future potential. In summary, emphasizes that the 7 psychological turn-ons only hold power when the avoidant partner truly desires change, and their application must rest on respect, freedom, and authenticity. By treating him as a person with agency rather than an object to be conquered or manipulated, you not only unlock his emotional defenses but also affirm your own value, someone who knows how to set boundaries, empathize, and wait at the right time. When all layers of emotional armor finally dissolve, you will reach the pinnacle of connection, a lasting love in which both partners remain free, yet deeply bonded. When you fully grasp the emotional shield mechanism and hold the 7 psychological turn-ons alongside genuine application methods, you gain more than a strategy to win over an avoidant partner. You create a relationship rooted in respect, freedom, and safety. Remember, this journey isn't linear. It's a process of gradually dismantling barriers, building trust, and nurturing connection. You will face setbacks, and he may retreat at times, but don't be discouraged. That is your chance to reinforce calmness, patience, and self-respect. In the end, healthy love isn't born of coercion or manipulation, but from 2 independent individuals willingly choosing each other. When you show him that being with you means the freedom to be himself, he will lay down his defenses and open his heart. Trust in your own worth, steadfastly maintain boundaries, and continually cultivate a safe space. This is how you guide an avoidant partner from fear to authentic desire, from defense to true connection. Now is the moment to take your first step on the healing journey and transform fragile love into enduring strength. Whatever the outcome, you already hold the key to emerge from loneliness and embrace genuine connection. Be courageous, be patient, and let your heart lead the way.